Amelia's hands trembled as she mopped the cold, hard floors of the office building's hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed above her, casting a sterile glow over the sprawling lobby. She had been scrubbing these floors for years, always keeping her head down, always staying in the background. The night shift was the quietest, the safest. It was when she could be invisible. But tonight, something was different. The rain pelted against the windows in a rhythmic beat, the kind of rain that made the streets look like mirrors and the air smell like wet concrete. She paused for a moment, listening to the hum of the air conditioning, the sound of distant sirens, and then her phone buzzed. Amelia glanced at the screen, the number unrecognizable. She almost ignored it, as she usually did with unknown callers. But something in her gut urged her to answer. Hello? Her voice was low, quiet, laced with exhaustion. The third shift in a row had drained her, and the last thing she needed was another interruption. The voice on the other end was deep, commanding. There you are. Her brow furrowed. The voice was smooth but carried an undeniable authority. Amelia stood up straighter, trying to place the voice in her tired mind. But it didn't sound familiar. Who is this? She asked, her heart beginning to pound against her chest. You don't need to know my name yet. What matters is this. I've been waiting for you. The words sent a chill down her spine. She looked around, suddenly aware of how empty the building was, how quiet the hallway felt. She was alone, completely alone. I don't understand, she said, her voice shaking slightly now. Who are you? Why are you calling me at this hour? Don't play games, Amelia. The voice said, sharp, cutting through her like a blade. I know where you are, what you do. I've been watching you for some time now. From now on, you're mine. Amelia froze. Her heart stopped, her pulse quickened, and the air seemed to thicken around her. The words felt too real, too final. She took a step back, glancing toward the front doors, as though the mysterious voice on the other end could somehow be standing right outside, watching her. You're mine? She repeated, confused and a little terrified. What are you talking about? But the voice didn't answer. There was silence for a moment, just a deep, heavy breathing on the other side of the line, as though the person was waiting for her to catch up, waiting for her to understand. Amelia swallowed hard, trying to shake the feeling that she was about to be pulled into something she couldn't escape. Something bigger than her life here in this building. She could almost feel the weight of the call, like it was pulling her in, deeper, farther from the life she knew. I'm not the one you're looking for, she said, trying to stand her ground. You must have the wrong number. A cold laugh came through the line. No, Amelia, I don't have the wrong number. I'm looking at the right one. The question is, are you ready for what's coming next? And before she could respond, the call ended. Hello, family. Welcome to Heartfelt Stories. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. It means the world to us. Tell us where you are watching from in the comment. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. Amelia sat down on the worn leather bench in the staff room, her mind racing. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, buzzing as though they too were struggling to stay awake. She couldn't focus on the mop she had left behind in the hallway or the piles of paperwork on her desk in the corner. Her fingers still gripped the phone tightly, the image of the call flashing in her mind. From now on, you're mine. The words echoed over and over in her head, rattling in her chest like the sound of a forgotten storm. Amelia tried to shake it off. Who was he? A prank caller? A scam artist? But deep down, she knew it was something much darker. There was an unsettling certainty in the man's voice, a promise of power, of control that she couldn't ignore. He wasn't playing games, and he was talking about her like she was already in his grasp. She glanced down at her phone, hesitated, then scrolled through her messages. There were only a few texts, her mother reminding her to eat, her friend Sarah checking in on her. Normal, mundane things. But then, the thought returned. What did he mean by you're mine? Her heart ached at the thought. The cold reality of her life, her mundane, routine existence, felt suddenly small, constricting. She worked long hours cleaning the floors of high-rise buildings, picking up after people who lived lives far beyond her reach. Amelia had never imagined someone of that caliber would even think of her, let alone claim her. But who was he? Alejandro Russo, he had said. A name that meant nothing to her, not yet. But the weight behind it, The way he spoke, like she should know it, like everyone should, sent a shiver down her spine. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door, and Sarah's familiar voice calling out, "Amelia? You all right in there? You've been awfully quiet." Amelia quickly wiped the tears that had gathered at the corners of her eyes. She hadn't even realized she was crying. The flood of emotions had come so fast, so overwhelming. "Yeah," she said, her voice hoarse. "Just tired. It's been a long night." Sarah pushed the door open and stepped in. She was a good friend, and even though they both lived in the same low-income apartment building, Sarah had an effortless grace about her. It was impossible not to feel the difference between them, the gulf that Amelia could never cross. Amelia often wondered if Sarah ever saw her as anything more than just another janitor. Sarah sat down across from her, her face full of concern. "You don't look fine. You're pale, A.M. What's going on?" Amelia shook her head, trying to dismiss the worry. "It's nothing, really." But Sarah wasn't convinced. She reached out, her hand resting on Amelia's arm, her voice softer now. "You know you can talk to me, right? Whatever it is, I'm here for you." The warmth of her friend's touch made Amelia's chest tighten. She loved Sarah like a sister, but she couldn't bring herself to tell her about the call, about the man's voice, about how she felt like her life was about to change, even if she didn't know how. She had worked so hard to get to where she was, keeping her head down, doing her job, never asking for more. The thought of it all being upended felt like too much to handle. "I know," Amelia whispered. "I just need to figure things out on my own for a bit." Sarah didn't press, but Amelia could see the doubt in her eyes. It wasn't just the physical exhaustion. It was the look of someone who knew there was more under the surface than she was letting on. "I'll be here when you're ready to talk," Sarah said quietly, standing up. She paused at the door, casting one last glance over her shoulder. "You deserve better, A.M. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't." Amelia's chest tightened at the words, but she nodded. "Thanks, Sarah." As Sarah left, Amelia sank back against the wall, staring at the flickering lights above her. She felt like she was unraveling at the edges. Better? She hadn't felt better in a long time. And now, this man, this Alejandro Russo, had thrown her into a world of chaos and confusion. Who was he really? What did he want from her? And why did it feel like the more she tried to escape his words, the more she felt like they were pulling her in? Amelia ran her hands through her messy hair, fighting back the wave of panic rising in her throat. She had always been the quiet one, the one who lived by rules, who kept to herself. But deep inside, there was a part of her that wondered, what if this was her chance to break free? She stood up suddenly, pacing around the room. Her thoughts were jumbled, torn between fear and something else. A small spark of excitement. Could it be? A part of her wanted to find out who this man was, wanted to know why he'd singled her out, why he was so certain that she was the one he was waiting for. Her phone buzzed again, and this time, Amelia didn't hesitate. She picked it up, her heart racing as she stared at the unfamiliar number on the screen. This time, there was no hesitation. She answered. "Hello." The voice on the other end was just as smooth, just as controlled. "Amelia, I've been waiting for you." Her breath caught in her throat, and the weight of his words hit her harder than before. She closed her eyes, realizing that everything was about to change. The next day, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, even though there was nothing overtly out of place. She was on autopilot, cleaning the glass doors of the office building she worked in, when her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was a message from an unknown email address, the subject line simply reading, "Are you ready?" Her heart skipped a beat. She had tried to forget about the previous night's phone call, but there was no escaping it. The man, Alejandro Russo, was like a shadow hanging over her life now. He had her name. He knew where she worked. And now, he was reaching out again. Her fingers hovered over the phone, hesitation flooding her. She had to respond, didn't she? What was she supposed to do now? She wasn't a woman of many words, not someone who would normally engage in these kinds of mind games. Yet, something inside her, the part she buried deep, was intrigued by him, by the mystery of it all. With a deep breath, she tapped the screen to open the email. "I've been waiting for you. It's time to make a decision, Amelia. Come to my office at 5 p.m. today. There are things I need to tell you, and I'm sure you'll want to hear them." You've been chosen for a reason. Don't keep me waiting." The email ended with a simple signature, Alejandro Russo. Her pulse quickened, a cocktail of fear and curiosity mixing in her chest. She had been chosen, he said. Chosen for what? And why did she feel the need to answer him, even though every fiber of her being screamed to run in the opposite direction? Her thoughts were a whirlwind as she finished her shift, every step dragging heavier than the last. She was nervous, uncertain, but the more she tried to push the idea out of her mind, the more persistent it became. There was a gnawing feeling in her gut that told her, this is important. This might be her only chance to understand who he was, and maybe even why he'd singled her out. By the time she returned to her cramped apartment, the uncertainty of her decision weighed heavily on her shoulders. She stood in front of the mirror, running her fingers through her hair, wondering how she had gotten here. How had this strange man come to control her thoughts so completely? A tap at the door startled her. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. Who would be visiting her now? She wasn't expecting anyone, and the hour was late. Hesitantly, she approached the door, peering through the peephole. A man, tall, dark-haired, and dressed in a black suit, just like the men she had seen in the building's lobby before. Her heart pounded as she unlocked the door. Amelia? The man's voice was low, calm, but somehow terrifying. Yes, she answered, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm here on Mr. Russo's behalf. He's expecting you. It's time to go. His words were simple, and yet they sent a chill through her. Mr. Russo? She repeated, still unable to believe this was happening. How did he know where she lived? Why was he sending someone to collect her? Her hands trembled as she clasped the doorframe. The man didn't seem to care for her hesitation. His expression was unwavering. He's waiting, Amelia. You can come willingly, or I can escort you there. Either way, we don't have much time. She felt a sudden, overwhelming need to escape, to run, but the words, "You've been chosen," flashed in her mind, and she knew she couldn't back out now. Not after all this. She nodded slowly, stepping back from the door. Give me a minute. As she grabbed her coat, she glanced out the window. The city skyline looked peaceful from her window, but the fear creeping into her chest told her that her world was about to shift completely. She'd never felt so uncertain about a decision, so unsure of where it would lead. The man stepped back to allow her space, his eyes tracking her every movement. When Amelia finally stepped out the door, she was fully aware of the gravity of the situation. She was walking into a world she didn't understand, and with every step she took, she felt the invisible thread tying her to Alejandro Russo tighten. As they descended to the street, she glanced at the black car parked outside. Its sleek design and tinted windows made it stand out in the dimly lit street. Her heart hammered in her chest. This was it. There was no turning back now. She slid into the back seat of the car, the man sitting beside her, silent as ever. The car sped off into the night, the lights of the city blurring as they drove farther away from her apartment. The tension between them felt palpable, the silence thick and suffocating. Amelia's mind was still spinning, trying to make sense of everything. She couldn't stop thinking about the way he had spoken to her the night before. From now on, you're mine. The words had been an enigma then, and now they were a promise, one she didn't fully understand. As they approached a high-rise building that gleamed in the darkness, Amelia's breath caught. It looked like something out of a dream, a pristine, luxurious place that felt out of her reach. The man opened the door for her, his hand lingering at her elbow, as if to guide her in. You'll be safe here, he said softly, as though reading her thoughts. Safe. With him? She wasn't so sure. But, at least, she would have answers. The doors to the high-rise opened with a soft hum, the sleek metallic frame parting like a gateway to another world. The lobby gleamed with marble floors and pristine glass walls, a far cry from the worn-out corridors of the building where Amelia worked. The contrast was jarring, like stepping out of one reality and into another, one that was intoxicating, yet alien and dangerous. Mr. Russo is expecting you. The man's voice, though polite, was curt as he led her through the lobby, his pace quick and purposeful. Amelia's heels clicked against the floor, a sound that seemed too loud in the grand silence of the lobby. She barely noticed the staff as they watched her pass, their expressions unreadable. As they ascended in the elevator, Amelia's reflection in the polished silver doors stared back at her, and for a moment, she barely recognized herself. The woman looking back had changed. She had made a decision, and that decision had put her on a path she couldn't turn away from. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened onto a hallway lined with abstract art and tasteful decor. The man led her to a large, glass-enclosed office at the end of the hall. The door was open, and as they approached, a figure stood up from behind a massive desk. Alejandro Russo. He was taller than she had imagined, his dark hair neatly combed, and his sharp features illuminated by the soft glow of the city skyline behind him. He was every bit the enigmatic figure she had envisioned, a man of immense power and wealth, yet there was something about his presence that unsettled her. "Amelia," he said, his voice deep and rich with authority, "I'm glad you came." She stopped just inside the door, her body stiff, unsure of how to respond. His gaze swept over her, not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that made her feel seen. Like she wasn't just a janitor or a woman from a broken background, but someone with worth, someone he had been waiting for. "I have questions," she said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. "I need answers. Why me? Why did you call me last night?" Alejandro's lips twitched, a smile that wasn't quite a smile, but more of a knowing curve. "I know you must be confused and frightened, but I assure you, I've been very deliberate about all of this. You've been in my sights for a while, Amelia." Her stomach dropped. In his sights? What did that even mean? "You're not just anyone. You're special. Your resilience, your strength, it's what drew me to you," he said, his tone calm, almost affectionate, as he slowly walked around the desk and toward her. "But there's more to it. You have something I need." "What is it you think I have?" Amelia asked, crossing her arms, unwilling to give in to his charm just yet. "I'm just a janitor. I don't have anything valuable." "Ah, but that's where you're wrong," Alejandro replied, his eyes glinting with a kind of quiet intensity. "You have the key to something much bigger than you realize. You've always had it." Amelia stared at him, trying to piece together the puzzle, but all she saw was a man who seemed both terrifying and compelling, someone who was speaking in riddles she couldn't understand. "Why didn't you tell me who you really were?" Amelia finally asked, her voice rising slightly with frustration. "You could have told me all of this last night. You could have just told me the truth." Alejandro stopped walking and turned to face her. "I needed you to make a choice," he said simply, his voice darkening with a hint of something else, something like regret, but also something far more dangerous. "I needed to see if you would come to me on your own terms, or if I would have to make you. I've seen too many people choose fear over courage, over the promise of something real." "I don't understand," Amelia said, shaking her head. "What do you mean by something real? This is all so surreal." "It's real, all right," he said, stepping closer to her, his eyes never leaving hers. "You, Amelia, are part of a much larger game. You always have been. The only difference now is that you've been chosen to play." The air between them thickened. There was no denying the tension now, the electricity that crackled with every word spoken. Despite everything in her that told her to walk away, there was a part of her that couldn't help but be drawn to him. Something deep inside her was curious, eager to understand what he meant, to learn what was so important that it had brought her here. "What game?" Amelia asked quietly, the question hanging in the air like an unspoken dare. "You'll find out soon enough," Alejandro said, his tone almost conspiratorial. "But for now, I need you to trust me. You won't be able to go back. Not after tonight. But I promise you, the world you're about to enter will change everything you think you know about yourself. And about me." The words hung in the air as the sound of the city below echoed faintly in the distance. Amelia's mind was racing, trying to catch up with everything he was telling her, but she couldn't. Not yet. Everything felt too surreal, too overwhelming. Her heart was pounding, but there was a spark of something else, something she couldn't quite name, that refused to be ignored. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. And despite the fear, the confusion, and the overwhelming sense of danger, part of her wanted to know more. Alejandro stepped back toward the desk, his fingers lightly brushing against the surface, as if he were waiting for her to make the next move. "Amelia," he said, turning to face her, his eyes darker now, more intent. You still have a choice. Come with me. Help me. And I'll show you what it means to have everything you've ever wanted. You'll never have to fear again. The weight of his words settled around her, and for the first time in her life, Amelia felt like she was standing at the edge of something that could either make or break her. The man in front of her was a stranger, yet there was something undeniable about the pull he had on her, a magnetism, an allure that seemed to transcend everything she had known. But was it enough to trust him? Was it worth the risk? Amelia stood still, the weight of Alejandro's words pressing on her chest. Her life, everything she thought she knew, was unraveling before her eyes. A janitor, someone who cleaned up after others, now tangled in a world far beyond her reach. A world of power, lies, and dangerous men. I don't know if I can trust you, Alejandro, Amelia whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. You've controlled everything. You brought me into this. You made choices for me, without asking. Alejandro's expression softened, but his eyes remained intense. I never wanted this for you, Amelia, but you're in this now. You can either walk away and pretend nothing happened, or you can stand with me and help me take down the people who want to hurt you. His words hung in the air. Amelia felt a flicker of something deep inside, an urge to walk away, to run and never look back. But she knew better. Running would only lead her deeper into danger. She had no choice. I didn't ask for this, she said, her voice shaking. I never asked to be part of this world of yours. You didn't ask, but you're here, Alejandro replied, his voice softer now. I'm offering you a choice, a way out of the life you've been living. But to do that, I need you to trust me. Amelia swallowed hard. Trust you? After everything? I don't want to hurt you, Amelia, Alejandro said, stepping closer. I'm trying to protect you from them. From the people who will stop at nothing to get what they want. Her heart pounded in her chest. Could she trust him? Could she trust the man who had turned her life upside down with one phone call? Amelia closed her eyes for a moment, her mind racing. She knew she was in too deep now. There was no way out. I'll help you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But this has to be my choice. I'm not your pawn. Alejandro's gaze softened, and for a moment, he seemed almost relieved. You're not a pawn, Amelia. You're the key. Amelia's breath caught as the tension in the room grew. Everything seemed to be closing in on her. The decision to trust Alejandro felt like it might be the biggest mistake of her life, but deep down, she knew there was no turning back. This world, his world, was too dangerous. But now, she was a part of it, whether she liked it or not. The night had fallen like a heavy blanket over the mansion, its towering walls casting long, dark shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly across the marble floors. Amelia sat on the edge of the couch in one of the mansion's ornate living rooms, trying to collect her thoughts. But every time she glanced at Alejandro, standing near the window, his figure bathed in moonlight, her mind became a whirlpool of confusion and doubt. Alejandro turned to face her, his expression unreadable. You made your choice, he said, his voice low. But trust comes with a cost. Amelia's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? The people after you. They're not just after the information in the hard drive, Alejandro explained, his voice hardening. They want something more. They want you. Amelia froze. Me? What? Because of who you are, he replied, his eyes locked on hers. And who your father was. They'll use anything they can to get to you. They won't stop until they get what they want. The weight of his words settled over her like a thick fog. What are we supposed to do now? Alejandro stepped closer, his expression intense. We fight, but not just for the drive. We fight for your life. They want to break you, Amelia. They want to make you a pawn. But I'm not going to let that happen. Her mind was spinning. Amelia had been in danger before. Yes, but never like this. The thought that people were hunting her, using her father's past against her, made her feel exposed, vulnerable. Her heart raced as the reality of her situation sank in. I don't want to be a part of this world, she said, her voice breaking. I don't belong here. Alejandro's gaze softened for a moment, but his next words were harsh. It doesn't matter whether you belong here or not. You're already in it. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she clasped them tightly in her lap. What do you expect me to do? Alejandro stepped forward, his tone softening. I expect you to trust me. And if you can do that, if you can accept what we're up against, we'll fight this together." Amelia stood up, a surge of anger coursing through her veins. "Together? You mean you'll fight for me, while I sit back and let you handle everything?" Alejandro didn't flinch. "I'm not asking you to sit back. I'm asking you to fight with me. I need you to trust me. I need you to believe that I can keep you safe." Her thoughts were clouded with fear and doubt, but there was something in his eyes, something that made her believe, at least for a moment, that he was capable of keeping his promise. "I don't know if I can," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Alejandro stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "Then you'll find out. Because from now on, your life is mine to protect." A shiver ran down Amelia's spine as his words echoed in her mind. She was trapped. But for the first time, it felt like maybe, just maybe, she could trust him to protect her. Amelia woke to the sound of heavy rain pounding against the windows of Alejandro's mansion. She hadn't slept much. The weight of the past few days was too much for her to shake off. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind returned to that night. The phone call, the hard drive, the danger that had somehow become her reality. Alejandro's words still rang in her ears. "From now on, you're mine." The air felt thick with the unspoken tension between them. She didn't know whether to feel comforted or suffocated by his presence. But one thing was clear. He wasn't letting her go. Not now. Not ever. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called softly. Alejandro stepped inside, his figure dark against the light streaming from the hallway. His face was unreadable, his eyes sharp as always. "We have a lead. It's time." Amelia stood up slowly, her pulse quickening. "A lead? About the hard drive?" He nodded. "And about your father." Her breath hitched. "What do you mean?" "I need you to trust me. There's a place where we'll find the answers we need," he said, his voice steady. "But we have to move quickly. The clock is ticking." For a moment, Amelia hesitated. She wanted to say no. She wanted to walk away from all of this. But the truth was, she was already in too deep. There was no turning back. "I'm ready," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And just like that, she made the choice to trust him. Amelia and Alejandro arrived at an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The place was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the storm raging outside. They were close now, closer than ever to finding the answers that would unravel the mystery of her father's death. Alejandro led the way, his movements deliberate, calm, like a man who had been through this too many times to feel fear. Amelia followed, her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't sure if she was terrified or exhilarated. Inside, the warehouse was dark, with only a few shafts of light cutting through the dust. Alejandro stopped in front of a heavy steel door, pulling out a key card. The sound of the door unlocking echoed in the stillness. "This is it," he said, his voice low. "The information we need is behind that door." Amelia took a deep breath, bracing herself for whatever came next. Inside, a dimly lit room stretched before them, filled with stacks of boxes, files, and what looked like old equipment. And there, in the center of the room, was a large safe. Alejandro walked straight toward it, his fingers moving with practiced ease. As the lock clicked open, he turned to Amelia. "Everything we've been looking for is in there," he said. "But you have to be ready for the truth." Amelia nodded, her throat tight. She knew the truth was something she wasn't prepared for, but she had come this far. She couldn't back down now. The hard drive was in her hands, and with it, the pieces of her father's life and death. But as the truth unfolded, so did the reality of her feelings for Alejandro. They had faced danger together, fought side by side, and through it all, Amelia had seen him not as the powerful man who controlled everything, but as someone with his own struggles, his own pain. And in the end, they were both just two people trying to make sense of a world that had hurt them. "I promised you I'd keep you safe," Alejandro said, standing beside her as they read the final messages on the drive. "And I did." Amelia looked at him, her heart heavy with emotions she didn't know how to express. "I don't know what happens next, but for the first time, I feel like I'm in control of my own life." Alejandro smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit up his face. "That's all I've ever wanted for you." As they stood there, surrounded by the secrets of her father's past, Amelia knew one thing for certain. She had found something in the most unlikely place. Not just answers, but a future. And as the last chapter of her father's story closed, a new one was just beginning. One where she would no longer be the pawn, but the queen. The journey isn't over yet. What does the future hold for Amelia and Alejandro? Drop your thoughts and predictions below, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more gripping stories.